All right, happy Monday, everybody. Welcome back. Hope you had a good weekend. I'm going to rifle through announcements. It's all about PTO. So we've got some folks that are out this week. We've got a lot of folks out next week with United Thanksgiving in the United States. There's a Family and Friends Day coming up next week. So if you happen to be not taking all of next week off and haven't marked that off, please take advantage of that. And the other one is I finally got around to writing my Q4 OKRs. So check the top of the document. You'll see what I'm chasing as far as what the objectives are and key results. So a little bit different this time. And so I'm already starting to work on those. So I'm going to break the line a little bit and pull something from bottom of this with all the time off that's scheduled for next week. Should we cancel this meeting for next Monday? All right, I'm seeing meh and yes, which means yes wins. So therefore it's gone. I'll remove it as soon as we're done here. Taylor, floor is yours, sir.
I would say go ahead and skip me if y'all can.
Okay, I'm on it. All right, item 4 on the agenda. So there is a big conversation that's floating up between Todd and engineering managers on if we should mix up how we do retrospectives. We're looking at two things. We're looking at a drop of feedback coming into the issues. We're also looking at a drop in attendance as far as the synchronous calls that are happening on Mondays. So we're wondering if it's time to shake things up a little bit. There's an issue for this. It was supposedly due last Friday, but I forgot to bring it up last week. So I'm bringing it here this week. There is no consensus yet as far as what we're going to do. This is to make sure, as you know, that we're talking about it. There's a few opportunities that are available here, and I'll pause for questions in case people have any.
I like the one idea with regards to splitting up to individual group. I feel like that might give more voice to localized issues and folks across the different groups.
I'm hesitating to give my opinion, so I'm not going to give one here, but I'll go ahead.
I think splitting up the retro might make sense. Kind of limit the focus a little bit. But at the when you announced this, you mentioned something about this switching up the retro, but also decline in attendance of the secure weekly. I'm not sure how they're related.
Not the secure weekly, the secure synchronous retrospective calls that happen on a monthly cadence.
Okay, monthly, not weekly. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. I may have misspoke because it is Monday and it is full of weeklies and one-on-ones, and so therefore it might have been a Freudian slip on my part.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Okay. I'll take this feedback. I'll summarize and get back into the issue. If you'd like to ask questions or have any other opinions about this, please contribute to the issue as well. I'm going to move forward. All right. Item 5. I will fully admit that when I wrote this, I had what to do with a problem like Maria from The Sound of Music playing in my head. And so there is a serious question that's coming up if you start looking at Common with it being a shared custodialship project. And we use it, composition analysis use it, the new container security group is using it. There's conversations about whether Browserker, which is now part of dynamic analysis, is going to use it. There's a question whether or not fuzz testing is going to use it. That's a lot of chefs in one kitchen. This is, I know we talked a little bit about this this morning as far as loosening up the approval rules so that it's not quite so onerous. but this is very much a big and open topic that we should participate in. So if you have opinions on what we need to do here, please contribute to this issue. I'll move on just because I'm looking at the clock and I know we've got a few things left that might have a good bit of conversation. Item 6, there's a handbook update that I filed late last week. So this is an FYI, it's an open MR. Related to us specifically, you can see there's the 3 big categories of changes. 2 are related to us. 1 is related to how we engage with our friends over in the front-end team, since they are supporting 4 groups at once, as opposed to just having to deal with us. So, so I wanted to make sure that you all knew what was happening. This is directly related into one of the retro items from 13.4. Any questions?
It's probably worth me saying something in this regard. Thank you, Thomas, for creating these MRs. Yeah, I think we identified there's a lot of disconnected pieces that makes it hard to manage, especially across 4 groups. And right now we have like 10 active projects, and I'm learning about new ones like by the minute. It feels like new large projects are rolling in, which is super exciting, but it's just so much more to manage. And so that Thomas and I discussed this a lot last week, and determined lead time was the main thing. If we can improve how we introduce, notice how much lead we're given across all groups and front end, you know, everybody, it'll really, really help. So that's what the focus is. I will say that SAST is quite clear right now. I think we've had a tremendous amount of alignment with Mark, you know, Florian being involved with SAST front end work. So there's a ton of transparency happening. And I think that continuity is really, really beneficial. We don't have that as much on other groups.
And just to articulate this lead time increase for front end requested, that's not that the issues are ready for refinement and we're ready to go. This is, hey, what's coming, and we can try to balance priorities. So this is, if we think we've got something that's ready for, if we think we need support from front end, that's to call it out early, even if it's a false signal. Even if it's a false positive signal, having the signal is good, because this will allow us to start asking the questions. All right. And now that Taylor's on camera, we'll back up to item 3. And apologies for going out of order here.
No worries. Thanks for the patience. So we're at the end of 13.6. I wanted to check in and see, is there anything we need to do with the AWS team in particular? I'll mention my morning has been crazy because of this particular project. I think Thomas has shared with a couple of y'all, there's some press folks digging around in a thread on Twitter about comparing us and GitHub secret detection. It's very square in the area that we're focused on right now of doing post-detection revocation. We wrote up a statement for them this morning, which I'll link in here in just a second, if I can find it. There we go. So that you can see that. But I wanted to make sure that with us coming up to the end here, and with us having now some press folks watching, I wanted to make sure that we have this sort of fully buttoned up. Any thoughts on this one?
Sorry, by any thoughts, do you mean on the document you just shared?
Less on the document, more on what's left to do for our side of the secret detection revocation API. I know there's still a request we need to make to AWS to whitelist our IPs on their production API, and I believe the plan is it's the same IPs that we're currently using. Is that right?
About the whitelist, I think it's already recorded in the issue where they're implementing the SRS service. Yeah, in that issue. And the remaining work is like there are two MRs that we need to merge from our side, the Rails. Then we can call the SRS service API. And we have also got the estimated volume of the request that we are going to make from the secret. If we get a detection by secret detection analyzer.
Okay, I think this has what I need. So I'll check in with the security automation team to make sure that my understanding of how they're doing this is correct, but it looks like it's the same API or the same IP address. We do have a sync with the AWS team on Thursday afternoon. If there's anything that y'all want me to follow up with the AWS team about, it'll largely be talking about where we're at, how we're going to roll this out, and then potentially pivot into a marketing conversation now that we're starting to get some press inquiries about this and figure out how we're going to handle that. Any other thoughts about the AWS API?
As far as I know, there are two AWS APIs. They are providing one for development purpose, another production level. So we will first test with the development one. If everything looks okay, then we can easily switch to production one. We just need to change the configuration. So from our end, I think it would be easy to switch between development and production.
And do we have anything like a soft fail to where if that API goes down or anything, it doesn't cause any problems?
If the API goes down, so then on our end, we'll get an error. There's a sidekick job. That job will retry 20 times if it fails.
Okay,
After
perfect.
20 times, it will just die gracefully.
Awesome. Okay, I think that answers my questions with the AWS API.
Let me translate the question I didn't hear Taylor ask. This is a .com SaaS only, not SAST, SaaS only feature, which means we're not trying to necessarily, we're not bound by packaging in the omnibus to release this. There's a release post and a whole lot of other stuff that are tagged at 13.6. Are we concerned about that? Don't feel pressure. That was a direct question that is expecting an asynchronous response. So if you want to think about it, please do. But this is probably the top question that we're going to need to be answering this week. Beyond, delivery.
Are there any other issues to be picked up, or is it all just in progress for this work?
It's in progress.
Okay.
So Taylor, I want to clarify another thing. So on our site, we'll retry 20 times. That means we are the Rails is talking to ASRC service that is that's been developed by automation team. So we're talking to the automation team. Anything happens to that API call, any error on our side, we'll try 20 times. I don't know about the details about how SRC service is handling the error related to actual AWS API. So that if you want, you can ask them, or we can ask them how they are handling that error.
Yeah, I'll check in with them. I'm less concerned about like it actually triggering the AWS thing. That's on them. I more want to make sure that we don't end up in a block state with a weird error with secret detection failing because it couldn't revocate or whatever. I want to just make sure that we handled it gracefully on our side. Okay, I think that's good for now. Feel free to post any questions in the Slack channel. We're at the end. Thank you all for your focus on this. I suspect this will end up taking off with press. The thought is that this press inquiry may turn into others. And then once this actually gets published, I think it'll end up attracting a good amount of attention, which is kind of different than what our initial plan was, but we're just going to sort of roll with it as the market and press react to it and discover things. So I'd say the only other thing to be aware of is know that people are looking at our issues. And so let's be just cognizant of what we're putting out there, because press is likely snooping around these issues in particularly.
So to just quickly touch on what Thomas raised earlier, are we not considering marketing this feature as something that is available to instances at present, or rather BYO revocation API as a feature?
I don't think it's worth doing right this moment for this initial release. We only have one AWS, one cloud vendor integrating with us. I don't think that's a very compelling story for the amount of effort. It's one that if self-hosted instances come to us and they're interested, we'll talk them through it, but it's definitely not the primary story because I think it's just a little convoluted. Cool.
Next sequential item on the agenda to discuss is number 7.
Number 7, I'll just keep it short. A really interesting graph. Becca asked a fascinating question. I was able to pull data and was really entertained to see how our secret jobs have shifted from the SAST template to the secret detection template. It's a very clear cross up and down. I think we'll very soon have many of those just completely gone. My suspicion is that the big holdout is actually GitLab. As Becca pointed out in the Slack thread that's linked there. So fascinating way to look at data and see how our jobs are transitioning.
Okay, next item's number 9, and then we're caught up. We're not going out of order after this one. So thank you everybody for your patience. In the sub-department wide weekly earlier today, we were talking about there's a whole thing about workflows and epic workflow versus sub-issue convention and everything else. And Todd made it known that he was looking for a group to volunteer to try this out. There was a workshop that David hosted a while ago. I've pulled up the presentation as far as how issues and epics are intended to be organized, as well as the agenda document from that from when it was presented. I'll be honest, I like this better than the sub-issue convention because it keeps us it enables us to work within the GitLab application as opposed to trying to bolt on sub-issues into GitLab, which we don't support, and that which clutters up issue boards and what we're trying to release. So I'd like for us to try it, and I'm seeing if anybody objects. This is also an eighth. Do it.
I just had a couple questions. Do we have meaningful work to be organized in this fashion? And when are you looking to run the test?
I need to talk with Taylor first. I went ahead and put this on the agenda without talking to him, so I'm going completely out of order. I see him smiling, which means that I am in trouble. And so we'll current timing to me dictates that this is not 13.6. This is probably not 13.7, which means 13.8 start as far as I would be concerned. It's too close to 13.6 is wrapping up. 13.7 is about to start. Yeah, we can react fast, but do we really need to?
I think that there's definitely things that we need to figure out still from it, which are some of the valid concerns Olivier raised before. Things like epics aren't assignable. and the epics relations to each others can be a bit convoluted. So there's bound to be dragons. I don't know if any are direct blockers to getting started, but I guess that's the point, is trying it out.
No.
So that's my biggest concern, is that I think there are still limitations with what epics can do. With that said, I think we are largely operating in this fashion today. Let's take the post secret detection epic, for example. Like, we had a technical discovery issue, which created an epic with all of the sub issues linked in. So I think we're using this pattern today. We also will end up running into the epic nesting limitation, which I know the plan team has on their radar, and it just keeps getting punted a release. I think it's now 13.7. We'll see if it gets punted again. But yeah, I mean, it's a learning curve, but I think we're already operating this way today, and I'm certainly trying to organize things moving forward with this sort of structure.
And for those wanting to know what the epic nesting limitation is, it's 5. If you can't go more than 5 layers deep, 5 epics deep, that's when you run out of turtles. Neil, your turn, sir.
Thanks. So, and I'm thumbs up on epics, by the way. Front end loves them. But we just want to make sure we're working with the group in the best way possible. So it's your discretion. The next 3 topics, the first 2 are more thank yous. I know Psycat and Ross are jumping on some work to get us caught up on the allowing core users to use our MR widget for security scans. I don't know if there's anything to discuss other than, yeah, Psycat, I'm not exactly sure when you free up from the work you're doing right now. It would be nice to just have an idea of what the timing is, just because like our release post, things like that, maybe depend on it.
Okay, so yeah, so as we are wrapping up the revocation token work, maybe we can spend time now. We have capacity. I can look into that. Yeah, this week. Maybe I'll start today. And yeah, I think Mark has already created an MR long before related to moving those APIs, but for some reason it didn't work. I can follow his changes and see what how can we make a MR with all the specs passed.
Yeah, I think it seems like a user tier type of logic.
Yeah.
Tree, following the thread at least. So no, thank you again. So yeah, just so we have an understanding of when this might continue. And then Ross, I know you, Aviel has some PTO. She was working on an initiative to aggregate our artifacts so that you can download them in one request rather than the Kluge system we have now. She's on PTO through Wednesday. I think she returns Thursday, but I know Ross, you're jumping in to keep that moving. I know that's a big shift, especially it's cross group as well. So I don't know if there's anything really to say on that, but thank you from me.
Yeah, I do want to take a moment and just say that this is a very impactful project, both the MR to core experience as well as the upcoming configuration page to core. This is the first time that we'll have an in-product, in-context upgrade experience for customers, and that directly ties static analysis to upgrade revenue, which is how I get us loved by everyone in the organization. I already know and have data to show that we're encouraging people to upgrade to Ultimate, but this will give us that explicit data tracking. So it's a very important project. It's definitely been noticed by Sid and other executive leaders. So thank you for your efforts here. I know we just keep pulling on the thread that never ends and continue to trip over all sorts of crazy things, but it's definitely going to be worth it.
Awesome. I'll keep moving with my last topic, which was,
Before
sorry.
you move on, sorry, Neil.
Ahead, Thomas.
I started
read
read
more.
only.
You had a read only. You can't do that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I had a read only and I changed it because I started to say something that I wasn't entirely sure is true given what Taylor just said. I interpret secret post processing to be the higher priority for the backend team at this time. I'm seeing nods yes. So I'm interpreting that I'm correct there. So we need to wrap that up so if we can finish that first while ramping up on this, that would be the preferred order, I think. And I want to make sure Neil's is okay.
No, I'm okay with whatever. I think Psycat, this is directed at you, and you should receive your direction from Thomas.
Yeah.
So what he said, totally aligned with that. Make sure, you focus on what you've got going on. I'm just looking for more of like, what's that timeline maybe look like? Is it today? Is it Wednesday? Is it next week? Cool. So this is a heads up. So we did some fantastic work on enabling SAST through the UI. Our first phase of that was a button, just enable via MR, which behind the scenes creates an MR. I think Rossi did the bulk of this work, and it creates an MR, and then we just navigate the user to that MR page. So there's no like real user interaction aside from clicking a button and then submitting the MR. We have dependency scanning. So composition analysis has dependency scanning, and then one of the other scan types in the future are going to be leveraging the same exact experience. So we're currently breaking down that work. Ross, I just CC'd you on this issue for your thoughts. I think the biggest discussion item right now is that work was done before we did everything in GraphQL. So it's still a normal RESTful. I think it's very much in the SAST code base as well. There's some references. So I think there's a discussion to be had about how do we optimize making that more generic, that approach, since we want to enable via MR for SAST, dependency scanning, and then some other stuff in the future.
I will take a look. Just shooting from the hip though, definitely lots of hard-coded SAST stuff that will have to be addressed. That's for sure. But I think we have moved away from the REST API. Like we are doing everything in GraphQL. Just needs there was some cleanup that needed to be done, I think, to just before we got rid of the REST stuff. So, but I'll check on that async. So, but
cool.
Thanks.
Yeah. And Taylor, you had a comment on that you met last week that Secrets is involved as well.
Yeah, we met last week and we made sort of the same decision for secret detection. Rather than moving to build the config UI for secret detection, that we'd start with this simple straight to MR button. I think that's a great iterative improvement, especially when you add it to the config page to core. It gets us something faster to help customers get secret detection turned on. So I'm really happy with that outcome. I know that meeting was an hour and felt like we talked around in circles, but I think it was a really great outcome.
Cool. And Daniel, you have the next topic.
Yeah, I know we don't have much time here now. Just mentioning though, I've got Friday off and next week off, but I'm gonna be working hard to try to help get rule disablement through the ringer today or this week. So we've got a common MR we got to get polished up and through, and then bump common across all analyzers, and then as well as a couple secrets and MobSF need full MRs for support. So a little bit of work left to do here, but it'd be great to get this buttoned up so that it's ready to go for the release. So just wanted to make that call out and might need some help on some of these MRs. So Lucas, was there anything else we wanted to add to that?
I think the only other thing was around the documentation, which I think there is a placeholder release post for this, but it might be empty. I don't quite remember, but if that's blocked on the documentation, I'll start working the documentation today or tomorrow, so we can at least have that in. We can merge the rest of our analyzers all the way up till the 21st at midnight, but not the documentation stuff. So,
is this going to make 13.6?
Odds are good. The current, yeah.
Okay, I'm completely shocked. I was not expecting that, so I will write a release post this afternoon.
Yeah, so the MR that enables it in common was done, but a bug was discovered, which is currently under review and approved from our side and waiting on one review from software composition analysis, which should come in tonight. I'll poke Adam as soon as he's online. And then it just requires bumping common, as Daniel said, for the rest of the MRs, except for like 1 or 2 special cases.
I think that's a wrap.
Yeah, that's a wrap. That's everything. We're at time. Even if we had more to discuss, I'd call time. So thank you, everybody. This is let's have a good week. Let's get everything wrapped up. Thank you for everything you're doing. We'll talk soon. See ya.